don't see a
Okay, I set it to
notification
go
yet.
live.
Huh?
I set it to go live.
Okay, let me check. Yeah, I think it's live now. All right.
Can you guys see me?
Yep, yep.
I can see everybody. Everybody got a chance to share it on their pages.
Right.
I don't know how to do that.
To share on your page, Jason.
Yeah, how do I do that?
Everybody got a chance to share it on their pages.
Yes.
Not sure how to.
Is your page locked or is it open? No,
Who,
it's
mine?
on your page. It's on your page, Jason.
Oh, cool. Even
So
better. There we go.
your page must be public.
Oh,
All
well,
right.
my friends can see, yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome.
Good evening, good evening, good evening.
Good evening.
Happy New Year to everyone. Super excited about our chat tonight.
You need to change your privacy settings.
Good evening.
Make your privacy public.
Happy New Year to everyone.
Who's that, mine?
Our chat
Let's see. Hold on a second.
tonight. Can you hear me good, Mr. Dixon?
I can hear you. Just did you hear what I said about changing your privacy settings
Our chat. What's wrong with my privacy setting?
on Facebook?
Okay. Need to change it.
Just go into your live post, and when it says privacy, it should be public.
Okay. Good right now. So where it says edit privacy?
Well, you know what? It's right there. When you go into your post,
I see it.
yeah,
I see it. Okay.
right
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I just did it.
Because that way people can share it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, it should be right now. Is it right now?
Let me go to it. Let me see. If I could share, I'll see if it should.
Okay.
Should be straight.
So it's restraint?
Yeah.
All right. All right, everybody. So I want to make sure we get our introductions out. Before we do that, I'm going to say a quick word of prayer before we get started.
Awesome.
And then we're going to get our introductions on this evening. Is that okay?
Yes, indeed.
Awesome. Well, Father, we thank you for this opportunity. We thank you for these, your incredible people. We truly appreciate your grace and mercy that's covered us today and brought us to this place. We ask you, Father, to speak through us and give us instructions and guidance on how to share this sensitive topic with your people in an eloquent way. We thank you for your loving kindness and your mercy. And it's in your Son, Christ Jesus' name we pray. Amen, and God bless.
Amen.
All right.
Amen.
Let's get started. We're gonna do some introductions on tonight. Mr. Dixon, we got two special guests in the house with us this evening.
I see.
Mhm.
You've done well on tonight. All right.
I've done some due diligence on tonight. We're gonna first acknowledge this gorgeous birthday girl in the building on this evening celebrating with us. Welcome to the hot seat, Dr. Janet. Please introduce yourself. Let everyone know who you are.
Well, I'm normally shy, but here lately I find myself on these platforms where I'm all up in the camera. But my name is Dr. Janet Newell. I am the overseer of a fellowship called Yeshiva Worship International Fellowship here in Wake Forest, North Carolina, but I live in Raleigh. Also, I am the owner of a Bible college here in Wake Forest, North Carolina. And I have a doctorate degree in Christian life counseling, a master's degree in Christian counseling. I'm certified in mental health first aid, and I am a certified creation therapist.
Wow. Well,
And
welcome.
I'm glad to be here.
So glad to have you. And we got somebody else over here who is actually quiet and not saying anything, but as an actor, that's not normal. But go ahead, Mr. Jason Thibodeau.
I just want to say hello to everybody this evening. My name is Jason Thibodeau, hailing all the way from a small suburb south of Houston called Missouri City, Texas here. A graduate of Prairie View A&M University with a degree in mechanical engineering, currently working as an underwriter in commercial property insurance. And as Ms. Brown said, I am a working actor here in Houston as well. Having been in well over 18 stage plays, several films, and continuing to grow. And just happy to be available and looking forward to this conversation.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I'm going to pull the backdrop up here, guys, to share with everyone the idea behind it. I was sharing with someone, probably just in general conversation. We were talking about relationships, and I was sharing with this young lady. I said my philosophy on relationships has changed since I became more mature, if you will. And I was saying that I don't want to invest energy into anyone that I don't feel that if something were to happen to that person and the compilation component of our relationship would not be able to be expressed again, that I would walk away from. So I was sharing with that person. Now, after you do all your research and you go through the little dating phase and all that good stuff, and you decide, hey, this is my person that I want to grow and invest with, do you consider the fact that there could be some time to where you can no longer consummate in that relationship? Do you really care about that person enough to maintain your integrity and stay within the scope of that relationship? And so that's where the initial idea came from, to have this show. And so here's the backdrop. The backdrop is, imagine you're enjoying an amazing weekend with your love, a time of intense, passionate physical expression. The interaction with them was so intoxicating that you never did leave the house. And then late Sunday night, it dawns on you that you need gas in your vehicle. In preparation for the week ahead, your man gives you an intriguing kiss and promises to finish what he started upon his return, when suddenly you get an unexpected knock at the door, and it's the sheriff's office coming to notify you that your person has been struck in an head-on collision and has been struck by a drunk driver. And upon arrival to the hospital, you find your healthy, strong, brave, amazing superhero of a man now paralyzed from the waist down. And that you will never have this experience with your love ever again. That he still has his mind intact, yet he doesn't have use of his limbs from the waist down. This is truly life beyond the sheets. So we definitely want to talk about this topic and shed some light on this topic as far as relationships are concerned, because there's more that meets the eye than the romance, the fluff, and the lovey-dovey warm fuzzies. Dr. Janet, you want to get us started?
How did I know she was going to start with me? First of all, I want to start out by saying this. With everything that they have out in the sexual industry, I don't believe that, I believe that they could accommodate one another that way. But also, when things like this happens, even though the person may be willing to stay with the person who is now paralyzed, that person may have this type of stigma about them where they don't want to be intimate, they don't want to be touchy-feely anymore, because they know that it's going to lead to wanting to have sex. And they may feel like they cannot perform or they cannot satisfy that person the way that they did before when they were able to. So that may cause not necessarily the person who is normal and healthy to not want to be in a relationship, but the one who is now paralyzed, not wanting to stay in a relationship, feeling like maybe they are now handicapping them as well. But when you're in a relationship, let's say this, and we're talking about marriage or a significant other that you've been together for a long time, and like you said, it was a beautiful night and you didn't want to leave the house and now he's paralyzed. When you come together, you're one. So he's not the only one that's paralyzed. Both of you now are going to have to deal with this situation. And you have to determine in your mind that's when situations come, that really tells you whether or not you love that person or not. Because love
Mm.
covers a multitude of faults and love covers a multitude of sins. And so I know people who are in relationship with people who can't even perform with them, but they love this person so much until the sex is not. Now, sex is important, don't get me wrong. Even though I'm a woman of God, I know sex is very, very important in
Right.
any relationship.
Right.
But they know how to accommodate, and you just, it's just like losing your sight. Your hearing gets more intense, your feeling gets more intense, your taste get more intense. So when that happens, there's other strengths that come forth that can make that relationship work. It can make that relationship be okay. But you're dealing with mindsets as well as dealing with crippling situations. You're dealing with the way a person perceives himself now. This man may feel like he's not even a man anymore because he can't function. You know what I'm saying? And then you're dealing with either self-pity with the person or guilt because, remember, she asked him to go to the store. And so she could be dealing with a form of survivor's guilt. If it wasn't for me sending him to the store, and what if I was with him, maybe it could have turned out differently. If it wasn't for me sending him to the store, he wouldn't be paralyzed. So there's a lot of things that we can talk about when it comes to this, but I can say paralysis is not the end of a relationship with, like I
Right.
said, all of the things that we have out there to be able to gratify a person sexually.
Right. And that's good that you said that. It's a lot of what you said. I didn't even dawn on me about the person feeling that component of guilt for the fact that they sent you out on this errand. And here it is, as a result of sending them out on this errand, they now are paralyzed and experiencing some type of frailty just out of a normal errand. So I didn't even think about that part or the component to where the person on the receiving end, as far as the person that actually is actually harmed, now feels inadequate. It's funny that you say that. A friend of mine mentioned that a couple of days ago. She was supposed to be on with us tonight, but wasn't able to join us. But she was talking about how her person said if something were to ever happen to him, that he would want her to leave him, to go ahead and exit, because he said he wouldn't want her to have to suffer or deal with that onset and go through that with him. So he told her, you have my blessing to go ahead and exit.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm.
Jason, what's your
Isn't that
thought on
something?
that's I don't know how I would feel about that, because I'm like, I don't know whether that's selfish or if it's loving. It's kind of like a double-edged sword to me with that, as far as
Yeah,
that mentality.
some components of it sounds to me like a settling of the ego, and it's like even though it's hurt, there's hurt involved, but the ego part is rather than me be realistic with myself as a man and say to myself, I can't please this woman. What I can't do is bear with her stepping out and then coming back home to me. You understand what I'm saying? So, and he's figuring, let's just go ahead and get this permission out the way so we don't have to deal with that. And I don't know. That's a tough one. But
No, that's
like the doctor said earlier, a second ago, when she said there are a lot of toys and different things and gadgets that can satisfy, but the thing is, it's only going to satisfy one of them. That's the problem, because see, he may be able to do something to help her, but he's going to detonate on the inside, because irregardless of his plight and him being handicapped, he still can't release himself. So it's going to be that's a bad combination,
wow. I didn't even think about that part. Yeah, that's another. It's so many variables to this whole idea. It's so many variables to it. Jason, what was your thoughts on that? I see you had a little light
Oh
bulb in your
yeah,
head going off.
plenty of light bulbs going off on this one. Different things can be derived from all that's been said. We talked about him, we're using a him in this instance, being paralyzed and not being able to perform. There's different forms of paralysis as well. As Dr. Janet said as well, they also have toys. So there's different things that we can break down here. Number one is the concept of, does he still have use of his situation, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Because I know some people growing up that have had that got shot basically, and he was paralyzed from the waist down. However, my understanding is that he still had use of his situation. You know what I'm saying, of his private part. It could also be someone who's paralyzed from the waist down who does not, and that's kind of the general assumption that we started with. Also, there are, like Dr. Janet said, there are toys that can be used. And there are also, I mean, there you can orally please as well, depending on how paralyzed this person may or may not be. Also, as Mr. Dixon said, we're thinking on one side about him not being able to please her, but also, what about him? If he still has use of his private parts, what do we do about that? Now, in thinking, what if he does not? Does he still have that general urge? That's something we don't know. Does that urge go away? At least that portion?
No, it doesn't.
You know what I'm saying?
No, it doesn't.
So,
It doesn't go that desire, the innate desire, because what happens
I would
is
assume not.
even though your mind doesn't send a message to your limbs to move, your mind still can recall to memory those
Right.
type of experiences. So the actual desire or the actual need for it does not go away as a result of that person sustaining that injury, even though they have that physical paralysis. If their mind is still totally intact, they still have that struggle inside of their head regarding the sex in totality. It doesn't go away.
I would imagine it wouldn't. I would definitely imagine that it wouldn't, And then also, I don't know. I guess I look at this situation as I looked at my grandfather when he started to go into dementia. And as he started to age, you were once able to do something, now you are not. And of course, that definitely plays on your emotions and your mental. Like Mr. Dixon said, we're not thinking about, okay, what about his ego as well?
Right. And that right there is interesting, because if the shoe is on the other foot, as a woman, how do we dance around this concept of thinking if something were to happen with us? Because it may not necessarily be a permanent situation. It can be temporary, but long enough to cause adversity in the relationship. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. In child rearing can be so taxing, not totally on the body, but sometimes on the mind. Sometimes when women have C-sections, it's so many variables that happen. And Dr. Janet, I know you can speak definitely candidly on this as being a mom yourself. There's so many things that happen with child rearing that you can go through a period where you have no desire for physical expression at all. And so that can be taxing on your mate, in that you don't have a desire for it, between all of the physiological changes and the baby hollering and screaming and carrying on. And this could go on for months and months and months before you ever get that desire back, or if you ever get it back. Then you have that situation where the person doesn't have any kind of defect or frailty in any capacity other than it going on in their head for the most part, and it's actually coming out in the lack of physical expression.
Okay.
So that can be taxing on man in that regard.
But the difference here with men, I mean, this may sound a little crazy, but with us, I'm trying to think of a good way to say this. with us, something has to.
Just say what you're gonna say. Just say what you're gonna say.
With men, something has to rise to the occasion, right? With women, it doesn't. And already, without a man even touching a woman, it's mostly visual in our mind. Let's just say if you just laying there, if you adorning your person. And if a woman was just laying there and she said, I don't have no activity from my waist down, but she looks the same, it looks the same to us, right? It looks the same to us. And let's just be honest. So with, let's use the Bible words, going into her is a little different. It's a little different than us rising to the occasion. So it may be a little, because I believe some men, if we were to really take a toll, some men could probably work around some things a little easier than you all work around us. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
I would tend to agree with that. Yeah.
Can I say something? I'm going to go back to the part where we talked about him saying, telling her that he would want her to leave him. And, one of those reasons why could very well be because he does not want to go through the part of rejection that comes from breaking up because of his inability to satisfy her. So
Right.
it could be ego, it could be fear of rejection, it could just be a number of things that would make him say, you go ahead and leave me because I can't satisfy you. But it's not fair because it's not his decision to make, or
Right.
it's not her
Right.
decision to make. It's the other person's decision to make whether or not they want to be there for the long haul. And like you said, sis, it could be temporary. It could be something temporary, but it's still a hardship, and it's still because sex is a very important part, just like understanding finances is a very important part of a relationship. So if the sex is bad, what's going to happen? Or if there is no sex, that man is going to get frustrated. Because I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to share what one of my spiritual sons said to me that had me blushing, but I had to listen because he is really a son to me. He said, do you know I went to the hospital because I was in pain? And I said, what do you mean you were in pain? He said, I was in pain. I'm abstaining and I was in pain. I said, okay.
Mm.
He said, you know what the doctor told me to do? I said, what? He said, he told me to masturbate. I said, what? He said, he told me to masturbate to get to release what was
Relieve this
inside of me.
depression.
I
Yeah, relieve
Yeah,
depression.
there's
said, right.
endorphins. Yeah.
Oh, okay, I get it. So imagine this. If this man is not, what if she is paralyzed? And even though I don't know because I don't have a man part, but
Right. Right.
what if he's not satisfied with her because, sex takes movement too, if I'm, to arouse a man. So what if he's not satisfied with her and he's frustrated, or what if she's just frustrated and then they begin to lash out because well, if it wasn't for you being this way, things wouldn't be this way. So we have to look at all of that when it comes to relationship. And I think one thing that would help them is if they had someone to counsel them and talk to them. They need to find a counselor that could help them through this particular type of situation so that they can vent or express how they feel so they don't have to do so much. I think verbal communication is very important when nonverbal communication is causing problems in a relationship. Did that make sense?
Yeah,
Yes,
definitely.
yes.
Definitely. And
But
it's all,
again,
So,
go ahead.
go ahead,
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Dixon. Go ahead.
No, but just still, when it comes to a woman, there are so many other things. As long as we talk, listen, as long as we're talking her being paralyzed from the waist down, there's other things, many other things, and many other limbs and activity of her limbs that can work in replacement of those things that can
Oh
really
my
get together.
God, Dr. Janet, do you hear this?
Probably, I don't, but you know what? When you
Hey,
think
I'm
about
loving it because for once it ain't me saying it. So go ahead. Yeah.
But listen, if you think about it like this, seriously, think about in a normal working relationship or marriage, and think about how people divorce because their needs aren't met physically, and the person is healthy. And to think about laying there with somebody, and maybe you legitimately tired from work, or you just not necessarily in the headspace to do it. And I remember myself. Years ago, I remember a person being angry with me because I was legitimately tired. But they were like, making all these grunts and groans. I'm just sitting here like, tomorrow comes, there's another day. But nonetheless, the
Hmm.
point of the person was, can you imagine a person being that angry with you and you can't do anything about it? There is no tomorrow. There's nothing. They're just pissed off at you because you cannot perform. So that's what that looks like in real time. If a person cannot do something and somebody is angry with you. So I know we always say, oh, I love the person and not be around. And it sounds good. But I'll tell you this one last thing. I remember when I used to live back east, and I remember I was in a really serious relationship, and I was and I remember we were coming home from the movies one night, and I said, hey, why is your sister parked in front of your house? And she says, oh, and she kind of had this embarrassed look on her face. And she's waiting on her friend. Now, mind you, the sister is married. I know this, right? Sister's
Mm.
married. And the husband was very sick. He had a lot of issues and he was having a lot of seizures. He spent a lot of time in the hospital. Now, there was nothing wrong with his limbs. He just was down, right? He was in the hospital. I'll never forget it. We pull up, and I said, oh hey, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay. So then when we get in the house, I said, is she okay? Why she not coming in the house? She just waiting. She kept stalling to the truth, right? The truth was she was waiting for her relief guy to pull up, and they were
Wow.
she was going to get in his car, go to the hotel, come back to her car, and then go home. That was, to me, that was like, wow. That's the truth in action. Like that's how it in her situation, she was stressed from him being sick. She was stressed from not being able to release. So she didn't go the route of I'm going to do these things in the closet, in the drawer, whatever. I'm going to go and do this, and that's when the rubber meets the road. You know what I'm saying?
And
I was like,
ironically,
wow.
that was her way of being discreet as well by using your house.
Correct.
You know, and
Correct.
you brought up a very good point a minute ago about the emotional part that some men go through or can
Right.
go through with this. But I think one of the things that a lot of people forget is that most men express their gratitude and love physically.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying?
Correct.
So
Correct.
while women, you always see those diagrams on Facebook and everything else, how to turn a woman on, and it's like 30 switches, and how to turn a
Right.
man on is a light switch, right?
Right.
But keep in mind that most men, we try to show our gratitude and our love for our woman from a physical nature. So at
Right.
that point where we cannot do so, or if we feel that we
Yeah.
can't please her anymore, I mean, you may as
That's it.
well act like you're
Yeah.
Asian or something like you see in those movies and just take a dagger to yourself. And that's what you was
That's
talking
it.
about, Mr. Dixon.
That's it.
And, I can see where he would say, you know what? I know what's probably about to happen. Let's just go ahead and cut to the chase and go.
Correct.
And so you're saying that basically in defense of that guy who said, go ahead and leave because I don't want to deal with the onset of what's going to happen as a result of me not being able to give you what I
What
was
you need.
able to give you before, and this is my way of expressing myself to you. Is in
Right.
this is my ability to express myself is physically.
Right.
Right.
That's
Well,
tough.
another thing to think about is we don't know what their sex life was beforehand. If they was, you got some couples that might get it in once a week. You got some
good.
couples that might get it in 2-3 times a day. If they were let me be PC. If they were a high frequency couple, I guess that's PC,
Right.
a way of saying it,
Right.
and he knows that she has a very high sex drive,
Yeah.
how he already knows what's about to happen.
Absolutely.
Most likely.
Right.
Especially, it's one thing if you're just taking your time, you're making love and it's sensual. But what
Right.
if she's more on the vigorous side?
The hit it and quit.
Smash.
Make love,
Just go ahead to the other.
make love and everything else. They could probably easily work that out. But if she's more on the
Right.
throw me around the room, this, that,
Right.
and the
That's
other,
gonna be a
guess what?
problem.
We can't do that now. You know what I
Right.
mean? And
Right.
and that's something to think about. Now, one of the things I never thought about until just now when Mr. Dixon was talking and he was referring to a young lady being paralyzed from the waist down. I always wondered, even if her special parts don't work like they used to, or she doesn't have that exact same feeling right there, I always wondered, does
Right.
everything else female down there work?
Well,
Mm.
actually, having a medical background, it does, because you have people who have had mental defects and had all kind of stuff going on where the physical body does respond to the stimuli, even though the person can't respond to the stimuli.
Right.
Oh, wow.
The body will lubricate, it'll get prepared, it'll do everything as though that woman is going to participate, even though she's not able to participate. As far as Dr. Janet was saying, like with the movements and the gyrations and all of those kind of things.
Yeah.
But actually, the body will just respond exactly as though she's going to participate.
We probably wouldn't divorce. It'll be all right.
But you know what's really
You want to divorce your wife because she got paralyzed?
We wouldn't divorce. We'll
Lord
be
have
okay.
mercy.
There'll still be
Lord
life
have
beyond the
mercy.
sheets.
Baby, I think we can work this out. I'm just saying.
Right.
But you know what's sad?
Dr. Janet, can you offer Mr. Dixon some
Oh, man, that's
premarital counseling before he ever gets a wife? Because I think
No,
he
Mr.
needs
Dixon
to
is
be on the
good.
couch.
I think Mr. Dixon is good. I think Mr. Dixon is good in the aspect that he has hope in this whole situation. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Right.
You gotta have hope.
But what we really need to consider is this thing alone is so frustrating to deal with by yourself. That alone
Yeah.
could destroy the relationship. That's
Right.
why I'm saying that they should invest in some good old-fashioned counseling. And I also
Yep.
want to say to you all, be free to the way that you speak, because when I counsel people, I have them tell me in their language what they're feeling so that I can
Wow.
respond to them. So don't be trying to use new words. We
Yeah,
all
I
go
mean,
and listen. I
this
love
is the hot
I'm a woman
seat.
of God.
Oh,
No,
no,
we're
we're not afraid to say it. We're just trying to stay somewhat
We're trying to be
professional. That's
correct.
all.
No, y'all
Yeah.
have to be. No, that's
appreciate
why
But
it's
see,
called the hot
see,
seat.
Dr. Janet, you seem like a very nice, humble, and politically correct woman. But here's the thing: I'm gonna tell you how. I'm gonna tell you how hard this would be for us men. So picture this: we are in a wheelchair, rolling up in there, and we have this fine wife with us. Here's the caveat: do we go to a female counselor or male? Because trust and believe, if we're honest, men, when you get in there and the counselor has to be very strong and steadfast, because you get in there, you got to find a wife, you got a man in a wheelchair that's now paralyzed, and he's in there talking about, well, we don't know what to do, and the guy's gonna give you all this politically correct advice, and then after the show's over, just call me and we can talk over lunch. There you go, because he already knows your wife has it.
Because I don't think that he's going to be able to talk to you like you need to be
Correct.
talked to.
Correct. That's
Okay.
gonna be a
No,
difficult one.
Or I got one even driving for you. The wife actually sends him a private message and says, "Hit me up later."
You can, and that's likely what can happen.
Right.
I'll tell you that.
it it does.
Yeah.
It happens. But why? What? That's why you need to invest in a married couple who are counselors, and let a
I
married
agree.
couple counsel in
Mm.
that
Oh, that's
sense, because
smart. That's smart.
and
And
I
that's
would
what me and my wife
refer.
did at one point as well. Yeah.
Okay.
That's
And it's a
very
lot easier when you do it that way because not one person feels like their interests are being denied or ignored. If you
Mm.
get a
right.
couple as a counselor like that, something to think about, because even if you have a very open-minded male or a female, one of the spouses is going to be like, well, she's going to side with you or he's going to side with you anyway. So I mean,
Sure
I agree
will.
with you, Dr. Janet.
Sure
You
will.
get one, if you can get you a couple and you're a couple, hey,
Even better,
pretty good
if you can
equal.
get a couple who has a counselor who has counselors who are has actually gone through it themselves, because there are counselors, there are married couples out there that has actually gone through that, and they specialize in that type of counseling. So you would just really try to do your research and keep people out of your business. Don't go to your
Yeah.
girlfriend and say, "Girl, I feel this way about him." Don't go to your boyfriend, and most of all, the women should not take on a male friend to talk to a male just because her husband or
Absolutely.
her mate is a
Oh,
male. No, don't do that.
absolutely.
So you have
Yeah.
to guard your relationship. You really do. If you really love that person, you're going to guard that relationship, and you're going to consider their feelings. And this is the realistic thing, or this is the right thing to do. But that it doesn't always turn out that way.
Yeah.
So you have to be very careful. There was a young man that told me one time, I was in the military, and he was talking to me in the armory, and he said to me, I don't mind talking to young women when they come to me, because I'll listen to their problem while I'm having sex with them. I'm looking at them, and that's what happens.
Wow.
There you
You
go.
know, I've,
See, that's it.
you
Mm-hmm.
know,
Wow.
like
Guilty.
I have some
Done it in
brothers
the
that
past.
come out. Okay, I got some brothers that
What
tell
you
me,
say, Jason
You
Thibodeau?
said it's a hot seat. I said guilty. I've done it in the past when I was single. We be over there having a blockbuster night, or you be talking about your little boyfriend, friend, or whatever the case may be, and I might start rubbing your back like, for real? Oh,
Right.
that's the same. You got to go through that.
Right. Yeah.
You said it's the hot seat.
Yeah.
Lord have mercy. Dr. Janet, I wasn't ready. Where's the pineapples button at? Where's the pineapples button?
Oh, we just getting started.
that's
But you know what,
he's
Jason?
telling the truth.
But you know what? That is so, and I applaud you for that transparency in saying that, because, even from the girl perspective, it's a lot of females who do the same thing. Guy comes and,
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot of times we feel like guys are emotionless, but that's the furthest thing from the truth. A guy has
Mm-hmm.
just as many emotions as we do. He just
Agreed.
shares them differently. His way of
Right.
sharing his emotions comes out differently. But you have those
Agreed.
women out here who are the same way. They like, let me go ahead and counsel you and help you to go back home after I take care of this situation that you found yourself in.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy, but it's very true. I'm gonna go to the comments, you guys, if that's okay, to see what
Let's talk about
everybody's
it.
saying. Okay. First of all, Gracia says, "Good evening, everyone." Good evening, Gracia. We miss you. Then Alice Muir says, good evening. Then we have Gracia also said, yes, things are a double-edged sword. And then Raymond Stansberry says, for better or worse has to mean everything after everything.
True.
Kimberly Adiva says, I think that it's selfish to ask your partner to leave. He should feel he has so much more to offer her than sex. The best sex in any form is an emotional and mental connection. You can be made love to without being touched. I would hope my partner mentally stimulates me as passionately as he does I him. I hope he stimulates my mind as passionately as he does my body physically. Joy says hi. And then Mark says participate. That's a new word. Translate, please. You all need to hear it from couples who are in this situation. Let's hear how they feel, is what Joy says.
I got a
Well,
couple scenarios I can share as well.
I was gonna say, and to be very, very forthcoming and transparent, when my mom and dad got married back in the early 70s, they were both fine. My dad had some situations going on with his eyes, but it wasn't supposed to be permanent. It was supposed to be where he'd be able to still function at his best and highest use, work, and all of those type things. Well, one day my dad goes and heads to work, and he nearly gets struck by a car because he couldn't see from his peripheral vision. And from that, he deteriorated completely to a point where my father became totally blind, to where he couldn't see anything but white shadows. And from that day to this one, it's been the same thing. And my father went through 66 surgeries in one eye.
Wow.
And so my mom and us as kids, me being the eldest daughter, we saw my father go through this horrible dealing. I mean, there was no human way possible for him to be able to physically express anything with my mom while trying to deal with this onset of paralysis. And you can imagine a man who's going to work, taking care of his family, all of a sudden he no longer can do it because he goes totally blind. The effects on my father went on for some years. It wasn't days, it wasn't months, it was years. I can remember, and I'm trying not to cry, I can remember times when my father used to just be sitting there boohoo crying, because there was no outlet for him. There was no way for him to fix this. You know what I'm saying? There was nothing he could do about it. It was his fate. That was it. There was no reversals. There was nothing medical science could do to help him. And my parents have been together nearly 50 years now. And that was something that was absolutely horrible to actually witness. But that's truly life beyond the sheets. We don't know what our fate's going to be. We don't know how it's going to play out.
And some of what. Oh, go ahead, Doc. Go ahead, Dr. Janet.
Oh, what I was going to say is really, until something like this happened, you really don't know how strong a relationship is.
Absolutely.
In situations like these, that tells the truth about that relationship. So it would be a learning process. It would be something that you would have to take one step at a time. And one of the comments that the young lady made, if we could just really be transparent and true, intellect is really good. I love a man who can talk with me. I love a man we can converse with. But that intellect ain't gonna do nothing for me.
Correct.
Yeah.
When them emotions kick in, that red light curve on.
Absolutely.
Emotions sound good. It sounds good, but at the end, it's not gonna get the job done.
It's not.
Exactly.
Mental. They haven't invented mental telekinetic sexually yet. So
No.
it ain't physical. It ain't physical. It's not relatable.
It draw you. It brings you to a place where you're physically attracted, and it'll get you, ready to go.
Wow.
But when you're ready to go, that talking is not going to.
Not
And
gonna
we're gonna
solve
try. And
nothing.
I know I have some people that are connected to me watching, and they know that my profession is counseling. So I pray that they can understand this conversation that we're having without trying to indict my relationship with the Most High. But the truth is the truth. After you finish talking, you got to seal the deal. And if you can't seal the deal, after a while, you're not even going to want to talk anymore. You're just done.
Right.
There's a conversation that comes that's talking, and then there's the physical conversation. They both have to line up with one another.
Right, that nonverbal communication component.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. I
Exactly.
mean, and I think, what she basically was saying is there has to be some other kind of glue that binds us together. And I think that's what a lot of people are missing. And I think that people have gotten so inundated with the physical expression that they never consider anything else outside of the warm fuzzy. We feel so good and da 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 da. But that's not really the reality of how relationships in a healthy component really exist. There's going to be times where, I mean, what if he's on a boat and he's in the military and he's gone for 6 or 8 months? Then what?
Exactly.
Um,
There's been horror
Then
stories with
Overseas
that too.
working. I mean, whatever
Yeah,
the case may be.
right. I
yeah.
mean, if your husband, I mean, I know some people now who literally could not find work in their field and they had to literally go overseas to work to make sure that their family was still provided for. You remember when
Right.
the oil and gas industry plummeted, a lot of people actually took positions overseas and they left their families here and they
Mm.
left them for like a year at a time. So then what happens with that?
You notice how quiet it
well,
got real quick, huh?
Yeah, yeah, because the reality,
well,
because I'm
I
telling
was
you,
waiting. I was waiting to see if anyone was going to interject. I really was. But my husband, when I was married, he was in the military. We were both in the military together, but he went to, I believe it was Iraq. He was
Mm-hmm.
gone for a year, and he went to, I believe he went to Haiti as well. He was gone all the time. He was special forces. I would say that. And to
hmm
be honest with you, that's when I got more done when he was gone. That's when I
Mm.
was able to do more as far as I could get the bills together. I could keep the house together. I could manage things with him being gone because, quite frankly, when you have a relationship, you have to take that time and spend that time developing that relationship when that person
Right,
is there. And so
right.
we
Right.
had, sad to say that my dedication to the marriage wasn't quite his dedication to the marriage. And so
hmm
we ended up divorcing because of adultery. But
Mm.
nevertheless, it is possible for a person to be gone for a year and both of them be faithful to each other. It's
Right,
possible. It has
right,
happened.
Very possible,
right,
yeah.
But like,
Depending on the integrity levels.
right.
Yes. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then,
Men,
with
men are,
technology, I'm sorry, go ahead, Dr. Jan. With
no, all I was
technology
going to say is
being,
men.
no, no, go ahead,
Go
go ahead,
ahead.
go ahead, go ahead.
No, go ahead, sis. Go ahead.
With technology being as it is, people can be able to maintain their relationships if they're not in the same space comfortably, with them being able to use the computers or their iPhones, iPads, whatever, because people have long distance relationships too, where they meet their
Yes.
person and they don't live in the same,
Hmm.
state or city. And so I was reading this article from Psychology Today, and it talks about integrity not being based on location. It was a doctor on there who said it doesn't matter where the person lives at. If they're not integrous, it doesn't matter. They could be in the house with you all day,
You know,
and they could literally be doing whatever it is they do. But if the
Right.
person, like Mr. Dixon said, if they have integrity, it doesn't matter the location. It matters the person inside the equation. And if they're integrous, then they're gonna do the right thing regardless of who's watching. Because
that
we can't see what our person doing all the time. It's no way to babysit an adult. It's just not. We can
But the other
try all
part of
day
it is
long, but it's
the
no
other
way to
part of
babysit
it
an
is
adult.
they have to value the loss. If they don't value the loss, then they will step to the side. They have to be
Okay,
able to value
elaborate
the
on
chance.
that, Mr. Dixon. Elaborate on it.
So the loss is
yeah,
if somebody's in a marriage or in a relationship and they're forced with distance of some sort, and like you said, at the end of the day, I know tons of men that will argue, and I'm sure all women have heard this at some point or another. She didn't mean anything. And the truth of the matter is, she probably didn't. If we're being honest, because at the time, the way men process, we don't necessarily, if we call ourselves stepping to the left or the right, we're not stepping for love. We
Mhm.
stepping for the moment. You understand what I'm
Mhm.
saying? For the moment.
Mhm.
And so while we're stepping, we're able to retract and say, oh, okay. Now, women, on the other hand, you guys are saying, look, you have broken our connection. You have broken
Mhm.
our intimacy. I have a problem with this, and now that's when it all goes to heck. But I'm just saying that to say, when a man is away, if he looks back at his relationship when he's forced with a decision, to make whether am I going to stray or am I going to act integrous. And at the time, he's going to weigh his odds. Well, this over here, what I'm doing might be a little bit okay to work with. Let me go ahead on and put some effort here, so I'll go ahead and gamble. But if he knows if he hurts this woman back home, and his whole world is going to change, he'll think about it a little differently before he moves.
Mm.
Hey,
But he'll
I
still
want to
lose.
elaborate on that. I want to elaborate on that.
Break that down, Jason.
Because I think there's some things that some people don't think about as well. This men, women, everything else, everybody else, not everything, but sometimes we need to come to grips with certain things, and that is, are we in love or are we in lust?
That's
Mm-hmm.
it.
That's
Mhm.
good.
Because I've been around people who have been in lust for a year or so, and then whenever something finally slows down, or say for instance he or she has to start traveling more for work or whatever the case may be, all of a sudden that relationship quickly deteriorates. So like you said, we started out talking about somebody being unable to physically, perform, like if they got hurt or something
Yeah,
of that
right.
nature, or if they was born like that. And then we transcended on to what about the people who are traveling and working overseas and everything else. So
Right.
we're definitely peeling back, more and more layers to this. And there's a lot more that goes on. Before that person left and started traveling, what was the nature of that relationship? Even if you're married, because we know people who rush to the altar.
Right.
So
Right.
Yeah.
after that show has worn off, then what? Stuff gets
Show,
real.
wow. Show. Wow.
That's good that you said that like that when you said the show, because a lot of this, Mr. Dixon talks about this candidly recently on one of his shows. I can't remember which one it was, but he was talking about the superficial stuff that goes
Hmm.
on in context of these relationships, and then when the reality check pops up, it's like almost turning on the light switch and the roaches start scattering. You know,
Yep.
like the real truth shows up when the light switch pops on, and then you find that these people they have literally had a representative standing in their stead for this extended period of time, and you
Yep.
literally believed that who they sold you was the person you brought, when in fact that is not the person that you brought at all. Not at
Yeah.
all.
I've even had conversations with friends, and I said, hey, like female friends, I have a tendency to have female friends that want to talk. Jason, why can't I find a good man? One of the things I'll ask them is like, okay, let's start here. When you meet somebody and y'all start dating, are you dating them or your representative?
Right. Right.
If you, then they have to accept you for you. And and I know this sounds like we're getting off subject. We're really not. But I mean, we got to get down to the groundwork of what was actually that relationship before this change in the relationship happened.
Right.
And if you had a representative at first, because I've seen some people hold that representative to
To
a year or
the end.
so, then all of
Yeah.
a sudden it's like, okay, well, I got the paperwork now, so this is me. This is what we are and what we're not going to do. And all of a sudden the other person is like, wait a minute, this is not what we discussed, and
Right.
Right.
this
I'm
this
saying
is not
yesterday.
the expectations that were set. If you have a
Right.
foundation built on lies, then your building is definitely going to crumble. Your relationship is going to crumble.
Absolutely.
And if it's a case of traveling, like okay, we talked about earlier, me being in the acting field, I'm around some beautiful people. There's a lot of models that end up being actors and actresses and stuff as well, right?
Right.
And that what comes along with that is, if you're dating someone like me or you're married to someone like me, you got to be strong, knowing that I'm gonna be around these people, and I don't want to do anything. Yes,
Mhm.
they're
Right.
beautiful. Yes, if my situation was different, I might say, "What's up?" and try to see what it do, using a little
Right.
Houston slang,
What it
But now, being that I am married, been married for 10 years, just made 10 years, hallelujah. It's been a
Congratulations.
struggle,
Good. Good.
but
Congrats, man.
that's
Yeah.
to the missus for putting up with me for that long. But if you don't have a strong person, then the traveling, like you was talking about,
Right.
and
Yeah.
the an ailment that might
Right.
prevent somebody from being able to
It's
perform
gonna be
or
hard.
satisfy their mate or whatever else, if you don't have that foundation to start with, or if it was built on a lie, nothing else matters
Absolutely.
Right.
at that point.
Right.
So,
Absolutely.
You know.
so
Good stuff.
So
Just
the
food for
Dr.
So
thought.
the
Janet, there's a question in the comments for you, Dr. Janet, that I really wanted you to touch on because we're looking at about 11 minutes until the show ends. But there was a question in the comments, Dr. Janet, that I wanted you to talk about. Gracia Collins Rich said, "What if the paralyzation is mental or emotional and not physical?"
Wow,
Then
that's
what?
powerful. That's powerful.
That's very powerful.
and I saw that. I looked down and I saw that. And with when the mental and the emotional paralysis, that's happening every day. When you think about it, when you see someone who is depressed and they can't be with their mate, that's mental paralysis. Depression will
Absolutely.
keep you from wanting to be intimate with your mate. Suffering from past things happening to you, abuse, sexual, emotional, mental abuse, will make you not be able to be that person to your mate because you still your soul is scarred, your soul is marred. And so this is something, once again, it goes back to counseling. It goes back to
Mhm.
finding someone that can help you walk this out yourself, not tell you how to walk out, but help you. The most effective counselor is one who can get you to the place where you can make the right decisions without them telling you what it is. So being able to sit in a counseling situation and begin to say for instance, I may say to you, well, what do you think your problem is? And then, well, when I was a child, I was molested. Okay. So when you were a child, you were molested. How did that make you feel? It made me feel like this, and this. So how do you feel that that's affecting your relationship now? Well, because whenever I see him or whenever, if it's a man, whenever I'm with her or however the relationship is, it takes me back to when I was violated. See, now they're coming up with their own solutions. So I'm telling you, the young lady, I would say to her, it would take effective counseling and it would take patience with the other person because the other person has to understand that this person has gone through a trauma or this person has some situations mentally and emotionally that they really do need some medical attention or some professional attention. So they would have to be really patient with them and understand that this is a prison that they're in and they don't know how to use the key to unlock it. And they can't just, a lot of times people think that people can just change their mind and get healed all
Right.
by themselves.
Right.
A lot of people don't know how to do that. I hear people say, grow
Very
up.
true.
I hear people say, get over it. They can't get over it because if they could have
Right.
gotten over it, they over it by now. So the mental and the emotional paralysis, it goes back to effective counseling. Counseling is very good. And what I found in the Black community, a lot of people do not want to go to counseling because it makes them appear to be crazy. But I would suggest counseling because it is
Absolutely.
very good for family, even family counseling. So I hope that I answered the question.
Absolutely.
Very well.
So we got
Very
a couple
well.
other real good comments on here as well. Capri says, my husband was also in the military. We had to be creative, and yeah, a lot of phone sex was happening, but we were more also friends and had respect for each other. That's important as well.
Absolutely.
Deborah Bowie Brown says something to think about. Are we in love or lust? Yeah, that's funny. We were dancing around a conversation about having a show surrounded by that topic. Are we in love or is this lust? Definitely, because Jason and I happen to be talking about that kind of a little bit pre-show stuff when we were talking about relationships. And then Katonia says, true, something to think about, the foundation. In other words, what holds two people together after the bliss? And that's exactly what we're talking about, the life beyond the sheets concept. What is that glue that really binds us together? Deborah Bowie Brown says the foundation is important. And Gracia says, if your relationship is built on lies, it's sure to crumble. It's just a matter of when.
Mm-hmm.
That is the truth. It is truly a matter of when, most definitely. Yeah. So I mean, it's so many variables around this idea of life beyond the sheets. You know, when you talk about the fact that you have kids involved, or you can even go so far as to put into the equation if you have children with another person, how it can affect your life beyond the sheets if you have children with somebody else and they're interfering with the nucleus of your relationship. A person could literally not want to be physically connected to their person as a result of that as well.
Very true.
To where there's some kind of outside influences that are involved in the equation as well. Or, you can be unemployed where somebody's not working. And unemployed wife versus an unemployed husband is a whole different scenario because men
True.
identify with their work. So if a man is not working, that can be taxing on him psychologically to have to perform, knowing that he's not able to do what he knows he's designed to do, and that's provide for his family.
And I've actually been through that myself, so very, very much true. Very true.
Mm.
So how did that affect your life beyond the sheets concept, Jason?
You talking about when I was unemployed, when I went through that
Yeah.
spell?
Mhm.
It's being okay, so slight background. Both my parents from the country, both of them strong-willed, both of them go-getters and workaholics.
Mhm.
And I've always considered myself one of those people who work hard, play hard. A lot of times work harder than I play because I like to be able to play whenever I want to, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. If I
Right.
want to go on a vacation, I'm gonna throw down that card and we're gone. That's
Right.
that's that's me. Not being able to do that or to lose that, there was a few psychological, I guess you could say, levels I went through. The first one was I'd worked in my industry for quite a while, so being able to pick up more work quickly, I thought that that would happen. And when that didn't, that was the first blow. And then it was, okay, how do I transcend working in insurance, having an engineering degree? Because everybody like, oh, you'll
Mm.
be fine. You have an engineering degree, you can just step into something else.
Right.
Well, engineering in insurance is not necessarily viewed by anybody else in any other industry. So you say that you're an engineer working in insurance, they automatically think I'm selling insurance, not the fact that I'm designing sprinkler systems and all kinds of other stuff that comes along with it. So
Mhm.
getting out of this industry, going into another industry became another blow. It's like,
Mm.
okay, so what do I do? How do I get recognized even though I've done all of this great stuff, right?
Mhm.
And then of course, when I lost my job, my about to be 9-year old, she, like we talked earlier, she'll be 9 tomorrow. She was a newborn. So here it
Wow.
is.
Wow.
I got a wife and 2 kids,
Wow.
and I was the
Wow.
breadwinner. I've
Wow.
Wow.
always made close to double what my wife makes, and that's not a
Mhm.
knock on her, but it's just with the degree in the industry that I was in. And
Right.
then to take that away, and then to go down to trying to figure out how we're going to make it off of her salary and unemployment. Because at the
Yeah.
time I lost my job, I had my credit card bills were high. I had a bunch of other stuff that went on. I mean, even while I wasn't working, hot water heater goes out in the house, and it's like, okay, you have to make a way. So, like Dr. Janet was saying, and like you were saying, and everyone else, that plays a part on your mental and your
Right.
emotional health to the point to where she'd be like, my wife would be like, come lay next to me. You know what I'm saying? Try
Wow.
to get a little something started, and there was times I would just push her away and be like, stop. It's like
Wow.
I just
Can't do it. Right.
I'm just not, my head is not in it and everything else. Now, granted, if we would have worked and played with each other for long enough, I mean, something probably would have taken place. But just me, I think, okay, like Danny said, whether you can, physically do something or not, your body will take over. But,
Right.
just dealing with that, it's very real.
Right.
And as adults, we need to be able to, number one, communicate that. And
Right.
number two, we definitely need to start seeking counseling more and more in our culture.
Absolutely.
A lot of times we say, "Hey, I don't need to go talk to a shrink or anything else." But when I used to mentor high school boys, I realized something. It took a while to break down layers because they could not talk. Once they started
Yes.
talking, all of a sudden you open up an envelope, you open up the binder, and you just turn page upon page upon
Right.
page
Right.
of things that these people have been through, these young
Right.
men. And I'm using young men. I'm bouncing all over the place, but I'm doing this as analogies. And you start unfolding these layers, and then you start to realize this is the reason why you act the way you act, or you're feeling the way that you're feeling. Same thing
Right.
in a relationship. You got to keep the lines of communication open so that way you can understand what it is that your spouse is going through. I got lucky because my spouse understood. She was also there with me when I lost my father. So she
Mhm.
understood some of my emotional levels that I was going to go through. And truth be told, after I was working for maybe 6 months after I found a job, because it took me about a year and a half to find a job. Granted, like I said, with a wife and 2 kids. And
Mm.
about 6 months after I started working, she lost her job.
Wow.
Mm.
Wow.
Wow.
So when you were saying that it's a little different for men and women, I experienced
Yep.
both sides of it.
Right.
Wow.
And it's amazing the emotions that the women go through as well.
Right.
I understood my emotions even though I could not always control them because I was raised and I brought up my parents being strong-willed and everything else because I was raised to support my household.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Now, then of course, then when she lost her job, now all of a sudden here it is, I'm paying for everything.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So here I'm trying to recover from that year and a half of not having. Now
Wow.
here it is, so then yeah. So I mean, that's why at times I'm goofy, I'm silly, and everything else.
Right.
But the people who truly know me, like you said, we've known each other for about a decade now. We've had some pretty deep conversations over the years.
Right.
You have to be able to open up, sit down, and have a real conversation, not just with someone that you feel close to or that you feel you can trust, but sometimes with yourself. And
Right.
Right.
that goes back to being to having that representative. If you can't
Right.
face yourself in the mirror, how do you expect anybody else to take you seriously? So,
Right.
you gotta, at times you have to humble yourself and be able to deal with you first. Seek counsel. I definitely agree with Dr. Janet. Seek counsel
Absolutely. Absolutely.
and, be able to work through your differences or try to.
Man, you guys, I
You,
can't believe it's 9 o'clock already. What happened?
uh,
What happened?
Hey, my
That's
glad.
my
it.
inbox my inbox has been on fire about this love and lust comment that Mr. Jason started.
Yeah, and
Uh-oh.
I look. Hey, but you know what, Mr. Dixon? No joke. Seriously, how about I had this in my phone? I said, "What are the signs that we have shifted from lust to pure love?"
I'll tell
That
you
was
really
the topic.
quickly. So I'll give you an exit on this one.
No, don't
I'm
talk
going to
about
keep
it. We're
it.
gonna do it on the show.
Oh, okay. All right. All right.
No,
All right.
that is another show, Mr. Dixon.
All right. All right. All right.
You guys, this has been absolutely incredible, an incredible share. We touched on so many layers of this life beyond the sheets, perspective and idea. I truly appreciate you two coming on the show. You guys have got to come back.
Yeah,
Anytime.
for sure.
Just let me know
For
when.
sure.
Y'all have got to come back.
You would be my guest. I enjoyed you all. This was really. I was able to let my braids down.
Yeah.
Yes. It
I
was such a
really
pleasure
enjoyed this.
having you all with us, Dr. Janet. We certainly appreciate your time with all that you're doing and all of the lives that you're changing. We are truly humbled and honored to really have you share time with us, especially on your birthday.
Yeah.
This is
Absolutely.
my
Happy birthday.
every year I try to do something on my birthday to give back. It's more of me giving than taking. So, I
Nice.
would have things where I would give away things or. So this is me giving back. It's my birthday, but you know what?
Yes,
Life still goes on.
And that's definitely
And so,
powerful. That's powerful.
that's so powerful. Thank you so much. And Mr.
And
Dixon,
Dr. Janet, hopefully he won't get sat down at the church. You know what
well, listen, I'm the overseer. I'm the overseer. I'm the
I mean?
prelate.
Right.
I
All
can't
right. Okay. All right.
leave the table. They can't sit me down. They
All
can
right.
leave, but they can't.
what you
These are
say,
the
Dr. J? You
conversations.
can go ahead and exit stage left, but you can't tell me what to do. I'm running the street around here.
I know that's right. I know that's
Uh-oh.
right.
Well, the Holy Spirit is running the church, but the thing about it is these are the conversations that I make them have because
Right.
Absolutely.
church that makes people
Absolutely.
live in a fairy tale, and
Right.
divorce
Absolutely.
is higher in church in Christendom than it is in the
Yeah.
world. So I make
Wow.
Absolutely.
them have conversations. When I do premarital counseling, I make them talk about sex. I make them talk about money. I make them talk about what's a deal breaker. I make them talk about what they will do sexually and what they won't do sexually. I
Absolutely.
give them I give them like talking exercise, all of that, because they need to
Mm.
be prepared to be in relationship before they get in that relationship
That's
because
right.
dating is
Right.
so different from church. So
Right.
Absolutely.
this is how
So
I
different.
talk. This
Mhm.
is how
Right.
it's about being real so that they can have a real relationship instead of that representative relationship that you were talking about.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
That's
Jason, what's
strong.
your quick takeaway on this? Jason, as we're closing, what's your quick takeaway for tonight?
Quick takeaway is that I think we have definitely, broke the mold. We started peeling back layers and stuff. And I mean, there's so much more that we could go through on this particular subject. But I'm very pleased. Thank you for inviting me on. And Mr. Dixon, like I said, I've seen you on here. Wonderful,
Nice to meet
wonderful
you, man.
knowledge.
Yeah.
Definitely a wonderful resource. I got me a new friend here, Dr. Janet over here. Best believe that
Absolutely.
if I need to talk, you might see me in your inbox.
I'm the
You
coolest
know,
doctor
but
in the world. I'm the
what you
coolest
say
doctor
now?
in the world.
There you
Right.
go.
I'm
Oh
the
yeah,
coolest
absolutely.
doctor in the world.
Right?
Nice.
And
Nice.
the biggest thing is you got to start having real conversations to get real results. I mean,
Absolutely.
that's
Nice.
my takeaway.
Absolutely.
Nice. Good
Absolutely.
stuff.
Thank you for
Good
that,
stuff.
Jason. Mr. Dixon, what is your takeaway on tonight?
Um, listening to all this tough talk, honestly, my thought settles on friendship before the calamity and friendship afterwards. That's the only
Yeah.
thing that's going to probably
Yeah.
give you a chance. That's the
That's
only thing,
true.
because I mean, because in reality, once that flesh kicks in and it wants what it wants, it's hard to contend with. But if you have a friend, you can at least, at worst, you can express it to them. If you don't have
Right.
a friend, you're going to react and do you. But if you have a friend, you can at least express it to them. That's
That's strong. That's good. That's
yeah.
very good. Well, everybody, thank you so much. Dr. Janet, go ahead and give us your quick commercial for your next show that's coming up so people can follow you and definitely
Yeah.
be on that show.
Oh, well, Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, we will have another talk show, Really Real Talk, and we're going to have Jordan Roger. He's going to be on there speaking, and he's a very controversial person. I mean, he's been kicked out of churches. He speaks
Oh
what
wow.
truth is. And so I decided to have, because he's saying some real things on Facebook, and he's a friend of mine. So I said, you need to come on and you need to talk about those things because the church
Awesome.
is failing the church. How about that? The
Mm.
Right.
church, and when I say church, I'm talking about us because we are the church. We're
Yeah.
Absolutely.
filling the institution of the church.
Right.
And so he's going to come on, and there's going to be some problems, and I'm built for it, so I'm ready for the problems. But I want him to speak because we need to shake up some stuff
Absolutely.
in the church and body of believers because there's been so much deception and so much error being taught until people are living in a fantasy world and a fairy tale, and they don't believe they should go through anything because they know the Messiah. That's when you're going to go through things. But Roger
Right.
is crazy, and it's going to come on Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Really, real talk. You can tune in on Facebook through Facebook uh, the Facebook page. But also, I would love for you all to come on and be a guest on Really Real Talk. All three of you,
Absolutely. We would love
Absolutely.
it.
All right.
We would
just talk
love
about.
to.
So please let me know your schedules. Please, just
Okay.
let me know when it'll be conducive for all of us to be on there together because I really want to talk about some real stuff. I want to
Awesome.
talk
Okay.
about sex. I want to talk about divorce. I want to
Okay.
talk about all that stuff that they won't talk about, so that
All
Awesome.
maybe we
right.
can wake some people up, and make them
Absolutely.
know. Go get some counseling so you can be healthy in your mind. A healthy mind is so very important. You can have a healthy body and a jacked up mind and be no good to nobody.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You know.
All
Absolutely.
right.
Mr. Dixon, your commercial, sir, really quick. Let us know what you're up to, sir.
You can catch me Monday night here on my page. If you just click into my page, we start at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, and we every Monday we air shows. We have different topics from week to week. So tune in and hope to enjoy it. And Mr. Jason, I'm definitely going to be contacting you, sir. I'll add you
Hey,
to the
holla at me.
I'll
Holla at
add
me.
you to
I'm
the
very
world of
transparent, a
men,
little too
fellas.
much sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. That's good, man. For sure. That's for sure. Got you, man.
So,
All
everybody,
right.
thank you so much for being on tonight. Truly appreciate your presence on the platform. This was an amazing conversation. My inbox, I don't know who over here in my box is blowing up, but something's popping off from this show. So, all these celebrity guests in the building, I'm going to cash app somebody $5 a pop.
All right. All right.
We really appreciate you guys being on the show on tonight. Blessings to each of you. Again, Dr. Janet, thank you so much for all you do to give back to the community. This was really awesome for you to share time with us on your birthday. So I will see you
Girl,
guys.
it's just a day. Stop saying on my birthday. It's just a day
Hey,
to me. It is.
my birthday is an international holiday, so I treat
Oh
it as
man.
such. You guys, thanks again so much. I'll see you guys back here for the next episode of The Hot Seat next Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. Be on time and let's make it go live.
All right.
See you guys next week. And thank you for your time, Dr. Janet. We'll see you Thursday night.
All right.
All right, take
Shalom,
care.
everyone.
Good night,
All right,
everybody.
listen.
Y'all have a good one.
All right. Thank you.